Your job is to be willing to die. You're a soldier, man. You're so on the front line. You've gone too far to turn back. If you went and hid in a basement for 6 weeks, people all over the world would think the government had killed you. So you have to understand your obligation, what the universe have gave you. And so just wants you to know. Man, I looked at that smile on your face just now. And the first time I ever wished I was a photographer, to take that picture and let the world see that honesty and that integrity. And know some of the things I know, how you'll drive all over the country to chase us down.
It's like a stalker, though.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Chase us down. Okay?
I do feel like I have an obligation for people. I mean, it's bigger than me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But no, being business, you can't see it. It was business to Trump. He saw nothing.
All right.
Okay? Well, I just saw it, that smile. Okay. And so again, I just say, man, I thank you. I look at Kathy Hughes, what she's able to do with that children. I look at Carl Nelson, the Joe Madisons. You know, some can go further than others because some got leeway. But I just say, man, to sit here, my birthday, it's a weekend. Thank you for contributing to my birthday. You know, all I say is thank you. We move so fast. I don't know if you're married, I don't know if you're a family, I don't know if you're a wife. But when we get on here, we bosom friends. Anytime I see you, I stop whatever I'm doing. Hey, my man, how are you? Hey. Hey, man, what, you know? I owe that to you. Because together, we can beat this thug. Because it's the universal God. And so again, I just say thank you. Thank you for running me down, man. So again, but that's the obligation that you have. How old are you?
Oh, 36.
So you don't have the right to do what 36 people do. You don't have the right to go to the dance or go to the party. You don't have a right to take that trip to Europe when I might need that plane fare to fly somebody else to feed my people that love me. You feed them. Oh, it's one thing being hungry from food.
Right.
There's another thing being hungry for information.
That's right.
And that's you the feeder. You got to be the farmer. You got to grow the crop. You got to till the grain. And at nighttime, when you hear something that sounds like water, you got to go see if the crop's going to be flooded. That's your job, man.
Yes, sir.
And then you got to deal with people that think you're crazy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, that's their way out. I'm embarrassed that you told me this, and I didn't know it, so I think you're crazy. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Baba Gregory, and the birds of the great Duke Ellington. We love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Guess who's back? Back again. Brother Ron. Tell a friend. Guess who's back and still black? Guess who's back? It's your friend, your brother, Brother Ron. This is We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. I am back. Y'all thought it was a joke. Don't call it a comeback, because I've been here. I've been there and I done that. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. 2025 has not disappointed. Has been very overwhelming for those tune out to tune in to get in where you don't fit in, because Dr. King said human Human salvation lies in the hands of the creatively maladjusted. So I'm your creatively maladjusted friend. Welcome to the herd. Have you heard the word from Brother Herd? This is the herd. The herd, HERD. This is the herd mentality. We on a different level here at We All Be. So we got some things to talk about. I'm gonna keep this under 2 hours. Thank you all for tuning out to tune in to get in where you don't fit in. For joining me tonight. It's Thursday, July the 10th, and yeah, I just want to get some things off my chest and things that have been percolating in the brain. It's time for the percolator. It's time for the percolator. Revelator. Ronnie Rebel has entered the chat. Okay. But let me see. I'll be trying to multitask because we in a multiverse. You understand? So with that said, let's talk. Yeah, I want to add some more things out there. I hope everybody's doing fine today. Let's go. That's right. Unsunken one. Thank you. Let's go. We about to go. I talked about Diddy last night. Some thoughts, free ranging thoughts on the Diddler, a Diddy free summer. But this is one thing I wanted to add that I didn't add last night. Let's get into it. Cause they were talking about Rico. All we know Diddy is not a Rico, he's a freako. A freako. Touch your knees to the elbows. Or something like that. Anyway, he's a freako. And he ain't the only one. He's the one of the freaks of the industry. The freaks come out at night. Okay. Dynamite. But anyway, let me find something here. I'm a very visual person. I'm a visual artist. Very visual person. Let's see. Bada bing, bada boom. Look at what we got here. The Goombas. Look what's going on over here. Hey, what's going on over here? Just me and the boys. It's me and the boys over here. You got old blue eyes. Frank Sinatra lucky he didn't live in this time. He'd been Me Too'd and tattooed and YouTubed and everything based on the stuff I heard about Frank Sinatra. He's one of my favorite singers of all time. Old Blue Eyes never disappointed me. He did it his way. But think about this, y'all. What if Diddy posed? I guess Diddy got pictures like this, but let's say Frank was facing a Rico. Look at that room. All the good fellas. Frankie, Blue Eyes, and the good fellas. The boys. See all them bada bing, bada boom? See all them hitters up there. That's La Cosa Nostra, this thing of ours. You see the guy to the right, on the right of Sinatra, that's Paul Castellano. He took over the Gambino family. You see the other guy to Sinatra's left, is the guy that he's embracing, but the guy on the side of where he's embracing, that's Carlo Gambino. That's Don Gambino. Mafioso legend, boss of the Gambino crime family. Arguably the greatest mob boss of all time in American organized crime history, allegedly boss of one of the biggest families in the country, one of the 5 families. He's over the Gambino family. And then you get Paul Castellano. He handpicked his successor, took over from Carlo, who was his cousin. I think they were blood. But then, you got Frankie Sinatra in there. Also, you got some other guys in there as well, too, some heavy hitters. Like Jimmy the Weasel Fracciano. I think he's over there by Carlo Gambino, Don Gambino. I think that's Jimmy Fracciano. He became one of the highest level mob informants in U.S. history. He was a mob boss, came out of Cleveland, L.A. He became one of the highest ranking mob figures to ever flip for the government. The feds is watching. The feds is watching. That's what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? So they could get Frank Sinatra. They say Frank Sinatra went to that infamous Havana, Cuba meeting that Lucky Luciano, who was deported from America, Lucky Luciano, he was a victim of the Mann Act as well, like a Diddy, like a Jack Johnson. He was a pimp. He white slavery charges. Lucky Luciano is the father of modern day organized crime in America. He organized the 5 families. He got rid of the mustache Pete's old bosses, old world Sicilian bosses, Joe the Boss Masseria and Salvatore Montarzano. He knocked off his bosses and brought everybody together, broke bread and made the commission and the five families of New York, and he organized the crime for the 20th century. Um, he had a meeting in Cuba. He was deported after helping Uncle Sam win World War II. He helped with the invasion of Italy, as among some other things. He was doing almost 50 years in prison for the white slavery trial. They were trying to, like Diddy was facing life in prison. They gave Lucky Luciano about almost 50 years in prison. And the thing about it is, what's interesting is that Lucky was on the run, right? He went to Hot Springs, Arkansas. Hot Springs was like Las Vegas before Las Vegas became Las Vegas. You had Oni Madden, who ran Hot Springs. He was an Irish mob boss. They call him the Killer from New York. He actually used to run and control the Cotton Club. Yeah, the Cotton Club with Duke Ellington and Lena Horne and Cab Calloway and Jimmy Lunsford. They all performed for white audiences. He owned that Cotton Club. So he got kicked out of New York, moved to Hot Springs full time back in the 30s. This is Oni Madden. Oni Madden also had dealings with Bill Clinton's mom. Bill Clinton used to be a nurse, I believe, for Oni Madden back in the day. And I think Bill Clinton knew about Oni Madden. Used to play his saxophone at the Democratic Party Club in Little Hot Springs. The little kid from Hope, Arkansas. His mama was Oni Madden's head nurse. Head nurse. I was getting some head. Getting some head. I was getting some head. But anyway, Oni Madden ended up dying in Hot Springs in 1965, but they caught Lucky Luciano down there on the run from the law and brought him back to New York State. And was interested by Lucky Luciano, just like with the Diddler, they tried to use black women to bring him down. And what I mean by that, well, I want y'all to understand how powerful black people are. His sister named Eunice Carter. She worked in the office of Thomas Dewey. Now, Thomas Dewey got the credit for bringing down Lucky Luciano, but it was this black woman who was one of the first black American Native lawyers in the state of New York. She worked at the district attorney's office in Manhattan, I believe. She created the blueprint to bring down the most powerful mob boss, arguably the most powerful mob boss in U.S. history. What she did was she interviewed the victims, alleged victims, or like I say, that's the ladies of the night. She interviewed the ladies of the night that worked in the brothels that were controlled by Lucky Luciano, and that gave them the blueprint to bring him down, to give him 50 years in prison. So there was a black woman that did that. They don't talk about it. See, black people, we're incredible. We're magical people. Black American natives are magical people. We the alchemists of this thing called the Republic of America. This American experience does not happen without black American natives. So remember, the righteous ancestor, Eunice Carter, was the real brain behind bringing down Lucky Luciano, man. And her birthday is actually July 16th. She shared her birthday with one of my Black History Dream girls, Ida B. Wells Barnett. They're both born on July 16th. They both raised hell, rebels with causes. They was about their business, about the upliftment and empowerment of their people, and they paid it forward. So Eunice Carter was the real person that brought down Lucky Luciano, but Lucky redeemed himself. The government gave him an out. So he helped the government with World War II, with protecting the docks on the East Coast, as well as with intel to invade Italy. But getting back, I'm all over the place, right? Not really. That picture is interesting. Frank Sinatra had no qualms about knowing, by showing people that he was connected to the Goodfellas, right? I talked about the Havana, Cuba meeting. I talked about Lucky Luciano, right? But he called a meeting after he got deported. He could not come back to the States. So he called a meeting in Havana, Cuba. Cuba was controlled by the mob. So they said Frank Sinatra was the entertainment for that historic, infamous meeting. And one of the things they decided was the fate of allegedly Bugsy Siegel, the man who created modern Las Vegas. He didn't found Las Vegas like Columbus. Columbus actually didn't come to the continental United States, right? He didn't come to actual North America. But Bugsy is credited with modernizing Vegas. He saw the vision where it could be the entertainment mecca of the country. So they was trying to figure out, one of the things, what were they gonna do with the Bugsy? Bugsy got to go bye-bye. Well, Frank was a fanboy allegedly of Bugsy Siegel. He really loved Bugsy. He loved him some Bugsy, allegedly. Man, Frank loved them some Goodfellas. You got to also think about Frank Sinatra. He could have easily been Rico. Just look at this picture alone. I mean, he got all these mob hitters. You got Paul Castellano, Don Carlo Gambino. You got Jimmy Facciano, the Weasel. You got Frank also helped set up the superhead of her time, Judith Campbell Exner. I think her name Judith Campbell Exner. She was the go-between. Frank Sinatra gifted her to President John F. Kennedy. And also she was gifted to Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana. So so JFK, President Kennedy, was sharing bad politics with the jump off for the Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana. They both shared the same girl. Same girl, same girl. And Frank Sinatra made that happen. So is that not like the Mann Act violation when you taking one girl, you take her from take her to Vegas, to Chicago, that town to Washington D.C. So that's interstate moving. That's interstate pimping, right? So could Frank Sinatra face some RICO charges by the people he hang around and the services he provided for those powerful men? Will he be a RICO person? Think about what I'm saying. Now, Frank, God bless the dead. I'm not trying to throw him under the bus by any means, but I'm trying to show you the hypocrisy of the America's Just Us system. You know what I'm saying? Frank Sinatra, he take a picture with mob bosses and stuff, and it's all gravy. Oh, it's Frankie. It's Frank Sinatra. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that last night with the Diddy thing. I think it's interesting. Well, Diddy hang around with nefarious characters and stuff. Just like 50 Cent, he hang around with Big Meech and stuff, making movies and TV shows about Big Meech, Black Mafia family, all that stuff. I mean, is he guilty of a RICO? No, he's dramatizing actual events that supposed to have happened in Detroit back in the 80s and Atlanta 90s, 2000s and stuff like that. I'm not getting all of that, but I'm just trying to say how this stuff is ridiculous. Because Frank Sinatra did not hide his affiliation with the mob, any connection with the mob. He did not hide it. So anyway, I want to show that picture. Every time I think about these rappers facing RICO, I think about this picture with Frank Sinatra and the Goodfellas. And these, Don Carlo Gambino was no joke, man. This man was able to prosper for decades without getting his proper citizenship. This man, I don't believe, ever became an American citizen. But yet he had all these thriving businesses. His people controlled the unions. I mean, he argued was the most powerful mob boss for 20, almost 30 years. Nobody came close to Don Carlo Gambino. And he kept a low profile. And he died in his 70s, surrounded by friends and family due to natural causes. But his successor, Paul Castellano, was not so lucky, as we all know. He was killed in front of Sparks Steakhouse, which still exists in Manhattan, during the holidays in December, back in December 85? Was it 84, 85? Y'all look it up. But it was very public. So that, I think, is another thing is trippy to me, how people talk about Memphis. It's so bad, but yet you had Bugsy Siegel was knocked off by, I guess, the mob, allegedly, in Beverly Hills. And you had Paul Castellano get knocked out in front of a 5-star steakhouse, whatever. I guess a Michelin rated steakhouse. I don't know for sure, but it still exists to this day. But my thing is, y'all weird. Miss me with all that Memphis so horrible stuff. I mean, American history. America is like a third world country posing as a first world power. You look at our infrastructure. Need I say more? Let's get over ourselves. But anyway, I'm gonna remove that picture. I think that's Jeff Fracciano next to Carlo Gambino. Y'all can look it up, but I just wanted to show that. I think it was very powerful to see. How y'all doing out there? Oh, he said a picture alone got my cousin on vacation in the feds, and that's what I'm talking about. your association. It's like it's perception versus the reality. What was the relationship dynamic of your cousin with these people? But people don't care. It's about what people see. It's not about what people know. It's about what people see and believe, not what people know and can prove. It's about what people can see and believe. Ron, you mentioned the Godfather movie last night. The Fontaine actor is, yeah, that is Sinatra. That's standing for no, like they dramatized the making of the Godfather movie. There was a limited series, and it showed a scene where Mario Puzo, the author of the Godfather and the screenwriter for the movie, along with Francis Ford Coppola, he got into it with Frank Sinatra in a restaurant. And they was about to go at it. Because Frank was very upset at how that book hit home like a hit dog hollers, right? So you also had the mob boss Joseph Colombo of the Colombo family. He was a consultant on The Godfather. He made sure, because his thing was Joseph Colombo, even though he was a mob boss, he was a civil rights activist for Italian Americans, right? He didn't like the fact how Italian Americans were portrayed as mafiosi and gangsters and thugs through popular media, which is ironic because he actually was a mob boss. So he consulted with Francis Ford Coppola. They had to, you talking about Big U in Los Angeles. Had to, if you're a rapper or a black entertainer, you had to check in with Big U. The Rolling 60s Crip, Big U's facing some Fed time right now. The Feds is watching. They always watching. So, Joe Colombo had Francis Ford Coppola and them check in with him. Robert Evans, Paramount, Francis Ford Coppola had to check in with Joe Colombo to make this mafiosi movie. What's crazy, Joe Colombo was assassinated or he was shot at an Italian American civil rights rally in New York by a black man. So a black man was sent on a crash out mission. He was posing as a journalist. He got close enough to Joe Colombo. He popped Joe Colombo. Joe Colombo ended up going into a comatose state for several years before he actually passed away. So people blame Crazy Joe Gallo, another mob boss from the Colombo family, for the hit. If he did it, I don't know. Some people think Carlo Gambino did that. Carlo Gambino was sly as a fox when it came to strategy and moving. He was really like a Machiavellian type of gangster dude. He was really about that life. But they say Crazy Joe did it because Crazy Joe was interesting. Look up Crazy Joe Gallo. He was interested because he was a mafiosi guy. He went to prison. He was like an intellectual. He was had a very high IQ, but he was a killer. Make no mistake about it. Some people believe he was one of the hitters that took out Albert Anastasia, one of the mob bosses of Murder Inc., in a barber's chair. He was head of the Magano family at the time, Albert Anastasia. And he got hit in the barber chair. And that shook up. Then Carlo Gambino ended up taking over the Magano family, and that became known as the Gambino family because they believe that Albert Anastasia disappeared his mob boss before him. I think Vincent Mangano or Philip. I think they disappeared the brother and the mob boss. They found the brother remains. They never found the mob boss remains. And Albert Anastasia, known as the Mad Hatter, because he was a psychopath. He became the head of that family. I'm just saying how messy he is. But Crazy Joe Gallo, he was a loose cannon, right? Because his thing was he wanted to do business with the black gangsters. He wanted to form a mob family that also featured black gangsters that he was cool with in the pen. Like I think he was cool with Nicky Barnes and people like that. So he wanted to have a rainbow coalition mob. And the old school mob guys said, no, we're not having that. And so they believe, okay, well, they killed Joe on his birthday, I believe. Around his birthday, he was eating dinner with his family or late dinner with his family at this Italian restaurant in Little Italy known as Umberto's. They dramatized that scene most recently in The Irishman, the highly fictional Irishman, where they claim Frank Sheeran came into the clam restaurant and gunned down Crazy Joe in front of his family. I don't know, Hollywood stuff, but interesting nonetheless. So, Diddy Daddy was a gangster back in that era. Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes were his contemporaries and whatnot, and people like Guy Fisher and people like that. I'm getting all over the place, and I'm wasting gravy all over my soup. I don't know. So there's a lot to talk about. All right, Norian, you asked a great question. You said, "Hey there, brother Ron. What's the scoop on the historic AME church that burned down there in Memphis?" That's a great question. Well, they said it was arson. We all knew that it was arson. This Claiborne Temple, for those who may not know, we lost Claiborne Temple on the early morning hours of Monday, April 28th, 2025. Claiborne Temple was a historic black church that was built in the 19th century. The structure was built in the 19th century, and it was the place where strategic meetings were held for the sanitation workers strike. And Dr. King, they were all strategized at that church. The famous "I Am a Man" poster was done in the basement of that church, I believe. They were handmade, handcrafted in the basement of that church. I know one of the people who made those signs, great brother Joe Calhoun, who's the director of the Witters Gallery Collection on Beale Street, which is a gallery museum named after Ernest Witters, who was a famous civil rights photographer. Used to be his studio, and he was known as, he became infamous later on, posthumously, as an FBI informant. But Ernest Witters was one of the greatest photographers of the 20th century. Really was a griot, a master griot when it came to the picture as it relates to the civil rights movement. Like, he was at the Emmett Till murder trial and took the famous picture of Mose Wright, Emmett's great uncle, pointing out the killers of his great nephew. So he snuck that picture. He did a lot of things. I mean, he was a great man in terms of his photography, documentary skills. And I got a couple with videos that talk about Ernest Witters' complicated and complex legacy. But they said it was an arson. They're looking for somebody. My thing is, it's right across the street from the FedEx Forum, where the Memphis Grizzlies play. And you think there'll be cameras everywhere, but you can feel. But my thing is, this is the problem. We're talking about the black church tonight, and it was a church before that, abandoned church, old East Trigg Baptist Avenue Church out there in South Memphis, off of South Parkway. It was vandalized and set on fire as well last fall, and that was ruled as an arson. And it was crazy to me because that church also has historic significance as well. That was the church that was led by the great Dr. Reverend William H. Brewster, a great minister and a song composer. Really, he's one of the fathers of gospel music. I know they say Thomas Dorsey is the father of gospel music, but I will put, Dr. William Brewster as a co-father of gospel music. He wrote the song "Move On Up a Little Higher" that Mahalia Jackson made famous. It was like allegedly the first platinum song in gospel history, or million seller, whatever. Move on up a little higher. He also had the great Queen C. Anderson. The great Queen C. Anderson was in his choir. Some people believe that Queen C. Anderson was better than Mahalia Jackson. And I listened to some of her recordings, man. She was phenomenal. She died early, unfortunately. But and also Elvis used to go there on Sundays. Elvis Aaron Presley used to go to East Trigg Baptist Church back in the day to listen to that good old gospel music, to hear Reverend Brewster and the singers, and also to participate, I believe, in singing, because Elvis had a love for gospel music. And I believe that the only Grammys he won, this is considered the king of rock and roll, right? The only Grammys he won, I ain't saying awarded like lifetime achievement Grammys. No, I'm just talking about the only ones that were competitive that I believe he actually won was based on his gospel recordings. Y'all should check out some of Elvis Presley's gospel recordings. You can tell where he got his roots from. And it's interesting. I did a great presentation about Elvis' relationship with the black community. Y'all should check it out in our archives on We All Be TV too. So with that said, they burned old East Trigg Baptist Church down. They got a new one next to it, but that was historical because of Elvis and Dr. Brewster's connection to that building. It should, and my thing is, I'm telling people. I told State Rep Justin Pearson, Tennessee State Rep Justin Pearson, on the day I saw him at Claiborne Temple property, the same day it caught fire. And it was in the evening. I told Justin Pearson and other city officials, y'all need to protect Mason Temple at all costs. Like Mason Temple is not that far away from Claiborne Temple. Mason Temple is the place where Dr. King gave his last speech on earth. The mountaintop speech was given there April 3rd, 1968, and he was assassinated the next day. And also, Bishop Charles Mason, the founder, the father of Church of God in Christ. You know, you got millions of members in Church of God in Christ. He founded Kojic here in Memphis, and he was a Memphian. He founded the Church of God in Christ back in, I believe, September 1907. I know it was 1907. I won't say fall or summer. I think it was September 1907. He founded the Church of God in Christ in Memphis. His remains are interred in that building in Mason Temple. That's the headquarters for Kojic, Church of God in Christ. Several million members in that denomination. So God forbid anything happened to that church. The saints are going to come to Memphis and spin the block 7 times and march on the head of Memphis. The saints ain't going to play with it. Nothing better not happen to Mason Temple, you know. And I'm sure they got people watching over Mason Temple. And, you know, speaking about Bishop Mason, I want to talk about what's going on with the black church in general. I think it's interesting, you know, like I'll start off with this, you know, and thank y'all for the donation. I really love you, Matt Lane. See who did this. Appreciate that so much. You know, it goes a long way. Trust and believe it. This stuff goes a long way. Boy, brother Al Great Dad or AI Great Dad, you are a blessing in the sky, bro. That's gas money for me. I appreciate it, champ. We love you madly, man. Um, speaking of the black church, and speaking of Memphis, I want to share with y'all. I wrote something that pissed off some people on Facebook. And it's funny how people they hate watch you, or they be watching you and they never like or share anything positive that you do, but they always lurking on the screen somewhere. Somebody's watching me. They always lurking out there, lurking. Because it's funny, I go to events in person and people tell me, "Oh man, I saw what you posted on Instagram or on Facebook, man. Congratulations." I said, "Really? Really?" Let me see. I'm trying to see what y'all said. You said they wanted the land. Yeah, no, you think about it. Even with Claiborne Temple is downtown Memphis, valuable real estate. You got the FedEx Forum right across the street. So I mean, you take that, whatever you will. That's Bill Street right there. You got FedEx Forum right there. You got this historic building. Now the lady who nonprofit is over Claiborne Temple. What's crazy is that her house caught on fire not that long before Claiborne Temple caught on fire. So she had a house fire, and then her property that her nonprofit controlled had a fire. And I believe they were putting millions and millions of dollars into that property at Claiborne Temple to rehab it into a space for the community to enjoy. And also with Claiborne Temple, you had the funeral of the late great Johnny Ace, John Marshall Alexander Jr., who's considered the first black rock and roll star in some circles. He was part of the Bill Streeters, you know, B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, Earl Forrest, Roscoe Dixon, I think Junior Parker. It was a super group. I remember I talked to Bobby Blue Bland. I said, man, the Bill Streeters was like the Wu-Tang Clan of blues. He said, what you say, son? I said, excuse me, sir. I said, the Wu-Tang Clan are like the Bill Streeters of hip-hop. He said, that's right, son. That's right. That's right. God bless and rest Bobby Blue Bland, man. But hey, but Johnny Ace is kind of like he's forgotten about in a way, unless you are a diehard music lover of early R&B and rock and roll. Johnny Ace, unfortunately, he killed himself by accident playing around with his gun Christmas night during a concert, 1954, City Auditorium, Houston, Texas. He was pointing the gun at people and pulling the trigger. And then Big Mama Thornton, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. That Big Mama Thornton, she told Johnny, stop playing with that gun. You gonna hurt somebody. I think she took the gun from him and gave it back to him allegedly, according to one, witness. And then Johnny was saying mind you, he had his girlfriend Olivia Gibbs on his lap. He had his wife at home, his high school sweetheart at home with his two young children, his daughter and son. And he had his girlfriend on his lap, and he pointed the gun at her. I believe he said, "Man, I'm gonna show y'all something. This gun is not, He pointed to himself, pulled the trigger, it went off." And Johnny Otis said that he had processed hair. As soon as the gun went off and the bullet hit his temple, his eyes went into shock. His hair stood on end, according to Johnny Otis, and he died at the age of 25. So they actually had his funeral on January the 2nd, 1955 at Claiborne Temple. B.B. King, I believe, was one of the pallbearers. And we celebrating the centennial anniversary of the birth of B.B. King in this year of 2025. So that building has a lot of historical significance, as well as being the homegoing celebration of Larry Payne, who was the 16-year-old teenager who was killed in the projects by the police, by Memphis Police Department. The officer who killed them was Leslie Dean Jones, L.D. Jones. And Dr. King called his mom, because that was the last organized march that Dr. King led in his life. And it is like it just really got out of control. Like some of the young people or some of the agent provocateurs, they start breaking windows into stores and start rioting and stuff. They had to rush Dr. King off the scene. And that was the reason why Dr. King was in Memphis for that speech, because he was coming back. He wanted to do a better organized march through downtown Memphis for the sanitation workers strike. So he wanted to make his point because he wanted to redeem himself. So he heard about what happened to Larry Payne after his march. He called the mother of Larry Payne, offered his condolences. He said he wanted to meet with her next week. Now, this was Thursday, March 28th, 1968. 1 week later, Thursday, April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was dead. So Larry Payne got several hundred people came to his funeral back in 1968. And then you had like 5,000 people at Johnny Ace's funeral at Claiborne Temple back on January 2nd, 1955. And Ernest Withers was the publicist actually for Johnny Ace's homegoing. He took the photographs of Johnny in the casket, helped arrange the stories. He was paid by Don Roby, who the owner of Duke Records and Peacock Records. Johnny Ace was signed to him. Don Roby was a cross between Berry Gordy, Russell Simmons, Suge Knight, and P. Diddy. He was a gangster. If you look at him, you thought he was a white man. He looked white, but he acted black. And he fought black. He was no joke. But anyway, wrapping it all up. Getting back to the churches. So you said, wait a minute. I said, wow, so is Claiborne completely decimated? If not, will it be fixed up? No, they used to build buildings to last back in the day. This building was well built. And the roof is gone, but the structure is still there. Like the foundations is strong. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know what the next move gonna be. But they got it. It's still standing. It's propped up. It's still standing, which is impressive. Yeah, I esteemed Black American native father of the blues, W.C. Handy historic home is on Bill Street. That was not the original location, but they moved it. They moved it to Bill Street back in the day. Yes, it's on Bill Street. Speaking of Bill Street, as I just got put on to Little Junior Parker's music, that brother was smooth, man. Elvis loved Junior Parker. And I believe Junior Parker and Al Green were cousins. The Reverend Al Green, Al Grits Green. I think they were cousins because he did a song that was a shout out to Junior Parker. He shout out Junior Parker at the beginning of a song. Like that was his cousin or something. But Junior Parker, I mean, Elvis loved Junior Parker. Elvis loved a lot of black entertainers. And a lot of black entertainers loved them back, like B.B. King especially. So Claiborne is still now. East Trigg they knocked it down. It's decimated. The old East Trig no longer exists. I think they got a historic mark out there. My thing was they should have just preserved old East Trig, and it should have been prominent feature on the Elvis Presley tour. I don't know if Graceland had some type of Elvis Memphis tour. Somebody did, but old East Trig should have been preserved. That's a loss for us, for the culture. And also, Aretha Franklin home is still where she was born, is still preserved in South Memphis neighborhood known as Soulsville, which is near Stacks. Doesn't Al Green still hold Judge Joe Brown some money? I mean, probably, perhaps, but that's a fun story to tell, right? I'm sure that, by Joe telling that story, he made that $5,000 back in revenue and then some, perhaps. So, I mean, everything comes full circle. Oh, man, y'all are interested. Thank y'all for these questions and comments along with my commentary. It adds up. But, let's see. He said Elvis was trying to riff like Chuck Berry. That 5 heartbeats work. 5 heartbeat. But you know what's interesting? I actually know a guy that Elvis took a lot from in terms of his artistry and presentation. I want to say Calvin Newborn, who was the brother of the great jazz pianist. Y'all call him Phineas. It could be Finest. Phineas Newborn. Calvin Newborn used to perform at the Plantation Inn in West Memphis, across the river from Memphis. And Calvin Newborn did a lot of things that Elvis incorporated into his act. So, I mean, it's a book written by a journalist I know, Preston Lauterbach, that came out earlier this year. I don't have it on me right now. That talks about Elvis' connection to black artists that he admired and inspired him to become what he became. So Elvis, he had a brother, Otis Blackwell from Nashville. He wrote a lot of songs that Elvis made popular. Otis Blackwell did an interview back in the 80s on the David Letterman show that's on YouTube somewhere, and talks about his contribution to the Elvis Presley's legacy. Because the thing about it is, white America is interesting to me because, they get mad at Beyonce for the country music. She's not country, and Beyonce is more country music than any of these white artists today. Because country music is a Black American native art form. You look at the king of country music, Hank Williams Sr. He was trained by a black man named Rufus T. Top Payne. As a matter of fact, the Grand Ole Opry and Hank Williams Jr., the son of Hank Williams Sr., they acknowledged Rufus T. Top Payne's contribution to Hank Williams' legacy and genius. Now, T. Top Payne died during the Great Depression, but he was hired by Hank Williams' senior mother to teach her son how to do music. And so I love Hank Williams Sr. I love this stuff, but they bury Rufus T. Top Payne an unmarked grave in Lincoln Cemetery outside of Montgomery, Alabama. So what the Grand Ole Opry did and Hank Williams Jr. did, they erected a monument at the entrance of Lincoln Cemetery that honored the contribution of T. Top Payne in country music, and also to the career and legend of Hank Williams Sr. So black people, we invented country music, and black folks also invented hockey. Black American natives invented runaway slaves, whatever you want to call it. They invented hockey, and black folks invented country music. So stop arguing about, y'all don't belong. We created the club. We set the table. We do belong. So anyway, let me talk about the black church. You can't have all this great music, R&B, rock and roll, even rap without the black church. Was my view of Ferry Lewis. Ferry Lewis was a pioneer. He's a legend. Ferry Lewis, thank God he lived long enough to record and get his stuff documented. Actually know a brilliant professor, a musicologist from Boston, Dr. David Evans. He recorded Ferry Lewis back in the day. When he was at the University of Memphis teaching, he started a record label where he recorded these people like a Ferry Lewis, I think like maybe even Memphis Minnie, and some other greats. So he had a chance to document Ferry Lewis. So Ferry Lewis, he was, he lived long enough to get recognized. They had the blues revival, the Delta blues revival back in the 60s. We had all these people interested in hearing from people like Ferry Lewis and Mississippi John Hurt and Son House, the people that's from Memphis, many people like that. Then you even have Alberta Hunter, who's like Gorilla of the blues. I love some Alberta Hunter. She actually retired for decades and worked as a nurse, and came back later as an elder and did her thing, man. Got her fame once again. She was a contemporary of Lil Harder Armstrong, Louis Armstrong, second wife that made him a superstar from Memphis, and Josephine Baker. Those were her contemporaries back in the day. But anyway, I think Ferry Lewis is great. I think he's phenomenal for what he's done and what he contributed to the culture. Black moonshine runners invented NASCAR. Yeah, why not? You had a movie that Richard Pryor did. He played a race car driver, a black guy. I think it's based on a true story. It ties a little bit into that. I mean, black history is better than science fiction or a Hollywood superhero movie, because if you told the truth about who we are as Black American natives, it's hard to believe. But when you start realizing we are those people, if you think about the fact that Thomas Jefferson knew that Black American natives were not inferior, because guess what? One of his best friends was who? Was Benjamin Banneker, a black man who designed DC from memory, a black man who created the first, he called it the Godfather clock or grandfather clock. He created the almanac. He was like, some people believe he was a part of the Dogon tribe, the Dogon people out of Africa who knew that about the stars and the galaxies before there was a thing called NASA for generations and centuries. So Thomas Jefferson knew better. All those so-called founding fathers knew better. Matter of fact, Thomas Paine, who was a founding father that people forget about, the rights of man, all that, he wrote with Common Sense. He wrote a couple things that got the colonies riled up. They got them bowdy. This is before social media and TikTok. He was doing his thing. But Thomas Paine told the founding fathers, we are a bunch of hypocrites if we don't free the black people. If we don't free black people, we are hypocrites. And the founding fathers, they were, they had some wisdom. They had some understanding. They knew that slavery thing was going to have to be dealt with sooner or later, but they postponed it, for a couple of generations. But it really should have been dealt with at the beginning of this republic. Had it been dealt with, a lot of things would be different right now. That's why we should never forget, our history. It's very important to remember these things because they're constantly redrafting what we thought we knew. It's a thing called the Mandela effect. Looked it up, where you thought you remember something that never happened or never existed. People talk about the way they spell Chick-fil-A, for example. Some people remember it was spelled differently, but it could be a false memory. You don't know what you. Then you got the fact that you're dealing with AI right now. AI is just changing the game. You don't know if you're watching a video if it's real, deep fake, and all this stuff. This stuff is crazy right now. And Memphis is really a key in all this stuff because the Elon Musk supercomputer, and people don't. It's not just the environmental damage it may allegedly do or is doing, but also this is Skynet. This is Terminator. This is our robot. This is like what Elon Musk told Jordan Peterson. He's in Memphis to raise a new god. AI is a religion for some people. Technology is a religion for some of these people. So he's in there to raise a god. Memphis is, like I said, Memphis is a powerful hub. It's a powerful energy portal. This is not people. We come out. I'm tired of people telling me or saying Memphis is land of the dead. It's not the land of the dead. It's the land of the numb. They made us numb to who we are and to our potential and where we come from. Once we get unnumb, once we thaw out, it's a wrap. They know it, and that's why they treat the majority of the people how they treat them here in Memphis. And they'll use miseducation. They'll use religion to control people, to control the masses from realizing not only their potential, but their knowledge of self and where they come from and who they are and where they're going. So this is why I say, you know what, I'm going to step out and keep on doing these shows. If y'all want to hear from Brother Heard the Word, y'all know how to find it. Y'all know how to support it. So if you can meet me, I'll meet y'all. I'll start talking out more, start doing more things that y'all like to hear about. But this is the thing. This is very important. We got to be able to tell these stories by any means necessary. That's very important. So, yeah, I want to share a post from Facebook because I want to talk about the black church situation. And I guess I can wrap it up after that. Like I said, I don't want to keep y'all long. I'm learning the value of making things plain and brief so people get on, because people got short attention spans. I know all the things that I talk about and what I do ain't for everybody. And for the people it is for, please be willing to receive this information and do something with this information. Besides, keep it to yourself, hoard it to yourself, release it and see what happens. All hands on deck, everybody. But anyway, I want to, bring this up. I'm gonna wrap. It's gonna be interesting. And I try to be above name calling people and disrespecting people just because we got a difference of opinion. And also I'm 45 years old, so I don't like doing the back and forth thing with people on social media. I like to use their energy for more conducive, productive things that will be conducive to my liberation and also my people's elevation. And so let me find this. What I said right quick. I be pissing people out. They like to hate watch what I do or hate read what I write. I think it's hilarious. It's really a shame, actually. It's a travesty. It's a travesty. Trying to post. Thank y'all for staying up, tuning out to tune in again when you fit in, man. Here is the post. The post. Okay, I said something. Okay. Let me see. We all be in it to win it. Okay, I wrote this, I think yesterday. Yeah. Y'all see that? I said, I'm a thought provocateur. I said, Memphis has more than produced its fair share of preachers, pimps, and lawyers. Sometimes all three in one person, man. So you see the emojis and stuff Ronavelli says. Let me read it once again. I said, Memphis has more than produced its fair share of preachers, pimps, and lawyers. Sometimes all three in one person, man. So I said that, people had a good chuck out for that. Then somebody I don't hear from, I don't know. Only when, I don't know. I don't hear from this guy that much at all. This is Noel Hutchison. He's a well-known pastor in Memphis. He's an import from New York City, but he's been in Memphis long enough. He's been here for a while. And so he got some skin in the game. And so I want to show, he said, and undercover Trump supporters. And I laughed and I put this little, meme of Trump talking about, well, that's a big statement. Then he said, no, it ain't. Then I said, by the way, ain't nothing undercover about my MAGA support, good sir. I voted for Trump 3 times, man. Did not regret it one time. Even my childhood pastor, the one who baptized me and I spent thousands of dollars on, honoring at the Orpheum a few years back, unfriended and disowned me for my politics. If you want to talk about it, we can do a podcast, good sir. You can hate me now, man. I got the little Trump dance. The Trump dance is your chance to do the Trump. Sexy baby. Do the trumpet dance. Do the trumpet dance. Sexy baby. Okay. Somebody said, shout out to Brandon Klein, you ain't wrong. So this is a pastor that I don't even hear from, but like he's kind of like Haley Comet when it comes to social media interaction with this dude. It's like every other season I might hear from him. Now, no, I actually been on a show with him years ago. He was on this black owned network, local network here, same channel. Also featured the late great Thaddeus Augustus Matthews, the cussing pastor, who we lost this year. It's a crazy year. And I have no personal problem with Noah, but sometimes Noah, I might say something that's controversial or go against the grain. He'll pop up. He got to pop up and show nagas, MAGA nagas. He got to pop up and show MAGA nagas, that he's out there. So, like, whatever. You see, he didn't write me back since that time, but when I'm saying it, it actually happened to me about my childhood pastor disowning and unfriending me over my political views. What's crazy is my pastor, the family pastor, I grew up in his church. He baptized me. He used to go to his holiday parties, his Christmas party. What I didn't know until like last several years ago, maybe around the time of the pandemic, was that he was a legendary gospel music producer. Like he was actually a legendary gospel music producer. I didn't know anything about that growing up, going to his church, but I knew at the Christmas parties, at the holiday parties, the music, the sound will be crisp and on point. Just back in the 80s, maybe late 80s, maybe perhaps even the early 90s, but I'm thinking about it's the 80s. I remember Andrew Dice Clay was the guy. Andrew Dice Clay was how y'all treat Dave Chappelle and them. He was treated like a rock star. He was he actually put Eddie Griffin on. He used to have Eddie Griffin used to open for him when he was on sold out tours. That's another story. But getting back to the preacher now, I came across an NPR story on him. Like they found some of these old gospel albums he produced back in the day in this dilapidated house out in South Haven or Olive Branch, Mississippi. And luckily the albums and stuff were preserved, so they remastered them and reissued them. And he started getting notoriety for his accomplishments back in the day. And so they did an NPR spotlight on him. So I was impressed. I was like, wow, this is my pastor from back in the day who baptized me. So I went to post congratulations on his Facebook wall, and I noticed that he unfriended me. I said, wow, this is weird. Why did Pastor 1D Ship unfriended me? Then I started reading his wall. He had all this hate for Trump supporters, man. He was talking bad about. He thought we were a bunch of idiots and clowns. This is not man. This is my childhood pastor. This is the man of God, right? He's anointed, the man of God, calling me an idiot, a fool, anything but a child of God. So I looked past that. I was disappointed that he unfriended me, and then I saw, he didn't think too much of me because I was a Trump supporter. And so I remember, in spite of that, a couple years later, I still honor him at the Orpheum Theater for the Jimmy Lunsford Legacy Awards. Now the Orpheum, that's big time. It's like all the Broadway plays, some of the big, they would come to the Orpheum to perform. It's a very historic venue. And so we thought enough of his contributions in gospel music. He even had one of his famous singers that he produced back in the day come perform for his tribute. He flew out. He flew people. People got flown in. His relatives around the country. They came into Memphis just to see his thing, just see him get honored. It's kind of like a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing. And this is me, Dr. Callahare, the We All Be Group Incorporated. We don't have a big budget like BET or like the Essence Festival. And people are like we so small time and janky because we are grassroots. Grassroots is different from corporate. And we make stuff. At least we start our things on time and we end them on time because we respect people's time. When it comes to, I don't care what it is, we start on time because I'm gonna tell you something. That was an adventure going to the Orpheum because we had to deal with union wages. Like they had put on more workers than we needed. We had to pay them union scale, and they were trying to overcharge us at the wazoo. We didn't know what we was doing, but God knew what we was doing. God knew our intent, so it came out pretty well. We honor young Dolph as well as Dr. William Brewster. His granddaughter performed with a gospel group and honor her great grandfather, Dr. Brewster. We honor young Dolph. I mean, we honor a lot of great people, and we had a fantastic time. We made it free for the public. Over 1,200 people came out for that event. Over 1,200 people. Grassroots. Our organization paid for everything. But, we spent thousands of dollars to honor this man. and he disrespect me because of my political views. And it was very hurtful. And then he got the nerve to call me, "You're my son." I'm saying, "I'm your son." He said that in his award acceptance speech. I got it on tape. "You're my son. I'm like so proud of you. You're my son." And okay. So I guess he refriended me and then he unfriended me again. And then what's crazy, I'm gonna tell you what's crazy. See, this is my childhood past. I'm gonna talk about this. Say I don't hate him or nothing like that, but why hide it? Because that's part of my history. He's part of my legacy, right? Um, this past April, I was on his platform trying to promote my show, the Jimmy Lunsford Legacy Awards. For this year, we had it at Overton High School Auditorium, my alma mater. And a couple years ago was the Orpheum. This year, it was Overton High School Auditorium Gym, which is a pretty nice, decent state. Auditorium, got sound, all that stuff. We probably did a better job. We did a way better job in our situation than they did for the Essence Festival just several days ago. Because we, like I said, we started on time, we ended on time, and we was able to do all we can do, grassroots wise. So I got on his radio. He got a radio show in Crosstown, the old Sears Tower. Now Crosstown used to be an eyesore. Now it's the it thing in Memphis. Old Sears Tower. You got St. Jude Hospital offices at the top. A lot of different restaurants, a lot of different things like a radio station, listening lab, art galleries, performance spaces. It's amazing. It's amazing. If you come to Memphis, go to Crosstown Concourse. You will not be disappointed. So I was on his radio show trying to talk about the event, the same program where we honored him a couple years ago. He kept on disrespecting me. He kept on undermining what I was trying to talk about. He kept on saying, "Well, you can't talk about this." I didn't say no. I didn't curse on his show. I respected his platform. Did not disrespect this man. But I said, you know what? If you're not gonna let me talk about this event, I'm gonna walk out this show. Well, you're gonna leave then. You're gonna leave. I'm gonna leave. And you're a hypocrite. I told you, you're a hypocrite. How you gonna sit here and call me your son and then disrespect me like I'm less than a stepchild? Like I'm less than. Like I'm less than human. And we spend thousands of dollars honoring you. Money that I didn't benefit from this. But you treat me like I'm because of my political views? Because it was weird because he kept on needling me about Trump. No, I'm talking about, celebrating black excellence and stuff like that. This man kept on talking about Trump. This, I said, why you? I said, first of all, I don't think Trump all that bad, and I don't think it's all his fault. And then he's talking about, well, a lot of black people are ignorant. They were slaves. I said, hold up, sir. The slaves that you referencing were prisoners of war. These were not, dumb people. These were builders of civilization. These was engineers and architects and scientists and culinary artists and performing artists. This was a whole civilization. See, Black American natives, we created this country. I don't care what nobody say. It's people that say, no, y'all didn't. And your folks just came off the boat last century. My people been here before there was a boat. We was here. So my thing is this. I walked out the show during a commercial break. I said, to hell with this. You're a hypocrite. God bless you, but you're a hypocrite. And I walked out the show just like that. And that's my childhood minister. Because I voted for Trump not once, not twice, but 3 times. And therein lies a problem. I'm in a city. Let me see how many churches Memphis got. Let's see. How many churches? I'm gonna start doing chat GBT, like whatever chat GPT, whatever y'all do AI. But I'm gonna ask how many churches does Memphis? Let's see here. Okay, I'm going with AI overview. I don't know if it's true or not. It said Memphis, Tennessee has a large number of religious organizations and churches. Kies IQ reports that there are 1,590 religious organizations and churches in the greater Memphis metro area. While the city was once known as the city of churches or a city of thousand churches, Historic Memphis says that many of the historic churches in downtown Memphis no longer exist. This is true. You know, especially black churches, right? There's a historic black church that used to exist downtown Memphis where Ida B. Wells Barnett was a member of that church. That church no longer exists. 10 years ago, that church hosted a homegoing celebration, or it didn't host a homegoing celebration. It hosted the wake of one of my Jegnas, the late great Emerson Abel Jr., who's one of the greatest band directors this city ever seen. He was a high school band director at Manassas when Isaac Hayes was in the band. He kicked Isaac Hayes out the band, ended up working for Isaac Hayes' movement at Stax Records. He's also the co-founder of the Southern Heritage Classic football game. He founded it actually in his living room, and he drew the logo for it. He was a real Renaissance man. But they had his wake in his home church 10 years ago. From my understanding, that church no longer exists because all the membership literally has died out. See, that's what people don't talk about. There's not a lot of young people, young black people going to churches these days. You go to churches on Sundays, be empty for the most part with a lot of older people and maybe young kids and stuff because they have no choice. They up in the church, but a lot of younger adults are not in church. They're not. I remember I went to Dexter Avenue Church, Baptist Church down in Montgomery, where Dr. King was the minister. He was in his 20s. Like when he became the minister of Dexter when you're like 26 years old. And that's where he helped led the Montgomery bus boycott, the 381 straight day boycott in Montgomery. That really probably was the greatest achievement of the whole civil rights movement. And it came early, and it came with black people dealing with each other. And the Montgomery bus boycott needs to be studied right now. And it was a form to me of military science. Military science. It's a military science lesson studying the Montgomery bus boycott and how they was able to do that, because when we talk about boycott, it's bullshit. But anyway, I was talking to the tour guide about the situation with Dexter, and she was saying how they're trying to recruit more younger people to come because mostly older people, and the older group is dying out. Now this was 10 years ago. She talking about how they can't recruit and attract young black adults to come back to the church. There's a reason for that, because I mean, I'm in the land, a city of 1,000 churches. Why is it that the best looking buildings in Memphis are the churches? Like you got big mega churches in the hood. Why does the hood look so bad in comparison to the church? And your church supposed to be prosperity preaching, and yet the hood looks the way it looks. Is the church investing in real estate in the hood? Are they buying up property? Are they creating housing situations that will benefit the people of said hood? Do they control educational institutions, financial institutions, law enforcement institutions? So you don't live in a community, you live in a hood. So my thing is, why you have these big old shiny pretty churches and stuff, multi-million-dollar facilities, and yet the people are living so impoverished around the church? Don't the church supposed to reflect the environment, or don't the environment supposed to reflect the church? I mean, my thing is about churches, like, you have these people that start these storefront churches, right? They start a storefront church. They have a couple of members. Over time, it grows and grows and grows into a mega church. But then you still got members that was day one people. Why are they suffering if the pastor is prospering? Why is the membership suffering that been there from day one, and the pastor got all his and his family needs met? Why is it that the day one who can't pay their light bill can't afford to pay their light bill? Why is the day one? And then I know situations of faithful members of churches who might have got sick towards the end and couldn't go to church on a regular basis and might got caught up in some financial situations. But when they was healthy, they was committed to the church. They constantly gave to the building fund, not worrying what the building fund money was actually going to. And then in their time of family's need, when they pass on, become righteous ancestors, They can't even have their funeral or homegoing celebration at the church because, according to the accounting of the church, they didn't give enough tithes this quarter or last quarter or for the last several quarters. So they got to have they homegoing at a funeral parlor or graveside instead of having it at their home church. This is the reality of the situation we are in, folks, because I understand why is your people so poor and you talking about prosperity? Why you always talking about heaven and not talking about heaven on earth? You always talking about heaven and hereafter, but you never talk about heaven on earth. White folks don't even care. I mean, like, Jewish people don't believe in Jesus and they prospering on earth. You got a lot of folks that believe in Jesus, they not prospering material wise. Why is that? What type of teaching you doing? What's in that book about slaves respecting their slave masters? What version of the Bible is that? Who are these people in the Bible? What do they look like? See, people don't want to talk about these things. Oh, it makes a difference. It makes a difference how you see yourself. I'll tell you why. The 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, right? 5 little girls, but one little girl survived, and 4 little girls perished. And one of the stained glass windows had a white Jesus. This is a black church, but they got a white Jesus in the stained glass. It took people from Wales over across the pond to raise money to put a black Jesus in that church. The good white folks over the pond, they say, y'all need a black Jesus. They made a stained glass black Jesus, but it took some evil racist demons to blow up their church during Sunday school, to blow up them girls in that Sunday school classroom in the basement, for them to get a black Jesus in the stained glass. This is how warped our minds are. What does God look like? That's why you might not be getting blessed, because are you praying to the right God? Are you worshiping the right person? Was his name even Jesus? See, I'm not gonna get into all that. I'm not knocking people. This is not what I'm trying to talk about. I'm not trying to knock people's beliefs. I'm just saying, why there's so much poverty if we got so many believers? Why there's so much material poorness if you got so many churches? Why people feel the way they do about themselves if there's so many so-called spiritual warriors in our midst? That's something that I think is interesting. So my thing is, how educated are the people that be in these churches? Because I think about Memphis, the greatest crime in Memphis is that they undereducate the gifted. The greatest crime in Memphis is the systemic undereducating of the brilliant and the gifted. If you look at Memphis, and I'm not knocking anybody per se, I'm not knocking some good pastors and preachers out here, but people gonna take it for what it is. They say it hit dog hollers for a reason. Every time there's a problem in Memphis, they don't go to, you know, crime. It don't make a difference. They always talking to a preacher. It's always Reverend this or Doctor this on the local news. They talk for everybody, but yet when you go to their churches, everybody not in their churches. Hardly anybody are in their churches. So who are they speaking for? Who are they advocating for? Because I know people. I mean, I'm already outcast. People don't like me anyway. I'm good with that. I'm gonna love myself though. You don't have to like me, but I can love myself. But I think it's interesting that I talk to people. I'm in the nonprofit sphere. They're in the nonprofit sphere. They'll go to these organizations and get an influx of money in Memphis, and they'll tell the organization about their idea. They pitch their idea, or actually talk about the things they're actually doing in the community, so-called community in the hood. Then the people that they're trying to get money from, they'll say, "Man, that's great what you're doing, but you know what? We're gonna have to pass because we got to give this money to Reverend so and so and Reverend so and so and Reverend Doctor so and so." But what are Reverend so and so and Reverend Doctor so and so really doing with their money? Held this many churches and held this much poverty and high crime. That's a crime in itself, ain't it? You know, Why are God's people so, going through hard times in this crazy town? Going hard times. There's no love in this town, man. So why are God's people having such a hard time getting some heaven on earth? That's something to ask about, because I know I deal with some of these ministers or preachers. They know about the work I do. They have platforms, whether it be radio shows or programs that could benefit from a person with my skills and expertise, but they don't call for me. They don't support me. They just look at me. They look at me as the man in the arena that falters. I fall, but I get back up and I keep up the fight. But it's really interesting to see these pastors, like they'll be on the sidelines looking at me. Then I say something like I said, then they come out the darkness. Or if I talk about my political beliefs, they want to blaspheme me and say I'm not a child of God. Something's wrong with me, and I think it's very fascinating. I have more forgiveness. I have more grace than they do, and they all want to be leader. But they really, it was funny. They don't want certain men in the church. They don't want men like me in the church. They want to have all the women for themselves. Yeah, I said it. So many people look at their churches as being harems. They have all the goody and the booty and the pushy and sometimes the boosty. They want it all to themselves. They don't want no challenges to their throne. That's why I said, Memphis has produced its fair share of pimps, preachers, and pastors, or pimps, preachers, and lawyers, and sometimes all three in one. Because like women is about emotion. It's how she feels about something. How so and so make me feel when he say that word. How it makes me quiver and get that Holy Ghost. And that's that Holy Toast. Think about the families that have been broken up. And I don't know how many, but I think about, I hear about women, they got their own family, but yet they stay all week at the church. They neglect their own family while staying all week at the church, at the pastor's, for his every need and whim, whatever. And it is what it is. But I'm saying, like, it's interesting that, you got a lot of people, you got a lot of single women in church, but yet they all dating Jesus. They're not dating real people. It's like, my man is Jesus. Okay, but ain't that like Ghost Dead? So you dating Ghost Dead. How is it like to date Ghost Dead? And I'm not, I'm just like, it is what it is. But I hear women like, oh, I'm dating Jesus. Jesus is my man. I said, okay, all right, all right. Okay, that's good. That's good. You got Ghost Dead got you. All right, Ghost Dead got you. Now, when you hear Brother Ron talk like this, you thinking that he's knocking Jesus or nothing? No, I'm not knocking no religion, but I'm saying, why is it that God's people are suffering so much in a town like Memphis with 1,000 churches? What are you actually teaching people? Are you teaching people how to fish, how to manifest, how to be alchemists of their lives? What are you teaching them if they always hurting, they always in pain? Are you exploiting that pain for your own gain? See, what my thing is, Dr. King, a lot of black pastors hated Dr. King because Dr. King wasn't trying to. Y'all got critiques of Dr. King. I'm gonna tell y'all this. I never met the man. I interviewed people that knew him well. My take is this: he loved his people. He might not know the correct strategies and methodologies all the time to use, but he wasn't afraid to say, "You know what? We messed up." Like he said at the end, we integrate into a burning house. And then I said, since we're in this burning house, let's be firemen and put the fire out. Before he could put the fire out, they put the fire out of him. They extinguished him. The system did. So, and Dr. King, he was an alpha, but I don't think he was a Mason. Mega Evers, I believe, was a Mason. You got pictures of Mega Evers. He got the ring and what. Even I seen Malcolm with the ring, whatever. Maybe it's an Islamic ring. But I don't think Dr. King was a Mason. He was an alpha, but he wasn't a Mason. And really, he was an outsider in his own, among his peers. You got to understand the reason why they formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, because a lot of the traditional black clergy couldn't stand King. They didn't like Dr. King. I ain't gonna never forget. I remember Tavis Smiley came to town, when he, when y'all used to love Tavis Smiley, state of a black union and all that stuff. When this is before there was a black president. I remember I saw Tavis at a black church in South Memphis, I think St. Andrews off Parkway, and he was doing a tour. And he was talking about how there were several prominent churches down south, in particular Alabama, where they would not allow Dr. King to speak from the pulpit because they didn't agree with his political views of what he was doing in the streets. So it was churches in the South, prominent churches, that would not allow him to speak from the pulpit. And I said, that's crazy. He a minister, he in seminary and all that. He got his doctorate. Then I remember Jeremiah Wright, Obama's minister, right? And Jeremiah Wright came to Memphis back on April 3rd, 2009. I ain't gonna never forget. I was there. He was spoke at, I think, at the Rose Hall, University of Memphis. Man, it was like you thought the president of the United States was on campus. There was so much security. They had, all types of law enforcement because he had all type of death threats on his life. Cause y'all remember, like, they try to derail Obama's campaign when Reverend Wright did that sermon. God damn America! God damn America! Remember he said that, and people lost their mind. White folks lost their mind, and Obama had to come to Philadelphia, in the so-called city of brotherly love, and put that fire out. He did. Obama was smooth with it, boy. I ain't gonna lie. Obama was smooth. Daddy Long Legs from Chicago. Sweet Daddy Long Legs from Chicago was smooth operator. So he came in. So they were still bashing Jeremiah Wright, who was he's a brilliant orator in his own right, and also he's a patriot. I mean, he saved the life of Lyndon B. Johnson. I think he was on the medical team or whatever. Maybe that's Mandela effect. But let's get back to reason why I brought him up. So he spoke at the University of Memphis. We had to go to metal detectors now. We had to go to a metal detectors to get into that theater. It was packed. And Jeremiah Wright, this is like on the eve of Dr. King's anniversary of his assassination in Memphis. This is April 3rd, 2009. And Jeremiah Wright said that when Dr. King got killed in Memphis, he said prominent black ministers in Chicago celebrated with their congregation. Let me say what he said. I taped this. I don't know where the tape is, the audio somewhere on one of my computers or whatever. But he said when Dr. King got killed in Memphis, we had black preachers in Chicago celebrating with their congregation. Yeah, I remember when Dr. King went to Chicago for the housing movement in '66. They defeated Dr. King in Chicago. Dr. King said Chicago was worse than any place in the South. He said that's how bad Chicago was, because Chicago was racially polarized and still is to this day. But it's not like it was like, Cicero was a sundown town. You cut out a sundown. They ran out a black family. You had 5,000 white people attack a black family just because they dared to move into Cicero. They had to leave all their things behind. Then you had A.L.L. Stevenson, the governor of Illinois. He's sending the National Guard to protect this black family from 5,000 raving mad white people. I can't make this up. And it happened. So Dr. King defeat came in Chicago, but he met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There's a picture of Dr. King, meeting with Elijah Muhammad. And that's an interesting thing. Like 2 years before he got killed. And think about that. Read the letter from a Birmingham jail he wrote while he was in jail in Birmingham. That was not addressed to the average person on the street. That was addressed to clergy, black and white, about, the reason why they were doing what they was doing. So Dr. King was not like, it was several times where Daddy King was approached by other clergy to tell him, get your son from Montgomery and bring him back to Ebenezer in Atlanta. And Dr. King told his daddy no, and years later, Daddy King said he was glad his son stood up for himself, that he didn't call to nobody. So I would say that to say Dr. King called a meeting of black pastors to talk about the Poor People campaign. Back in 1967, he called a meeting with black pastors to meet him to talk about the Poor People's campaign. Guess how many people showed up? Nobody showed up. The black pastors he called, over 100 of them, none of them showed up. This is a black church. So you had a man that was actually fighting for for heaven on earth for black people. He was fighting for reparations. And who's the torchbearer for that? Now you had the brother out of South Carolina, the former NAACP president of the state of South Carolina, with the Jerry curl and he had the hump in his back and all that. He had a corporate version of the Poor People Campaign, but Dr. King Poor People Campaign was grassroots. See, it's funny how the corporations, like he talked about the corporations in his last speech. He said, boycott these places, they'll take your black dollars, but not give you any black jobs. I'm paraphrasing. He's talking about boycott Coca-Cola, Hearts Bread, Wonders Bread, invest in black insurance companies, black banks, and things of that nature. He said that. And black businesses do matter because Max Johnson said, I saw Max Johnson speak at a symposium for high school kids, for school kids in Memphis at a church, the Temple of Deliverance, Bishop G.E. Patterson's church. That's a mega church. And now the area around there is being gentrified. So it's interesting. But he talked about how, you got more millionaires today than you had back in 1960. But you had more black businesses in 1960 than you do today. You actually had black ownership of things versus today. So how bad was it really for black people back in the day or black in the day? And, we could talk, whatever. But I'm just throwing some nuggets out there for what is the black church about these days? Because you got the National Baptist Convention sold out the black church for $300,000. You got several members in your organization. You took a $300,000 bribe from Target. Y'all supposed to be protesting Target because of DEI. And I'm not in agreement with that because DEI did not benefit Black American natives. Just like affirmative action at first did benefit us, but it ended up benefiting everybody, especially white women, instead of us. So there's no justice. It's just us. So what I'm saying is we off code. We've been off code for a long time. The church have an image problem. They have a identity problem. There's a crisis in the church. They, it's dying out. Even think about Mother Emmanuel. What happened in Charleston, 10 years ago is crazy. It's been 10 years ago. I went to Mother Emmanuel AME in the aftermath. I went there around July 4th. When that Mother Emmanuel happened? Uh, it happened June 17th, the 2 days before Juneteenth, 2015. Actually, I was in Charleston a little bit before that. I was covering a festival, Spoleto Festival, whatever. My uncle used to own and run the Charleston Chronicle. That was the oldest black-owned newspaper in the state of South Carolina. It died the same year he died when he was about 94 years old back in 2021. Unfortunately, but they did a great, special edition on Mother Emmanuel. And Bobby D. Gregory was in his, doing his thing, and we found out the government awarded the victims' family like 20-something $million. The federal government gave the victims' family $29 million in the aftermath of that. And nobody talked about that. And then you had Dylan Roof. People talk about him getting, the King's treatment, getting Burger King. They took him to Burger King, the law enforcement. Then they took him to Justice. But he was caught in Shelby, North Carolina. And I was the only organization that talked about why he was caught in Shelby, North Carolina. That is the birth home of Thomas Dixon, a famous evangelist, a preacher back in his time, but also author who wrote the book The Klansman, which was the basis for the movie The Birth of a Nation, that re-energized, resurrected the Klan in Stone Mountain, Georgia back in 1915. Thomas Dixon was a college classmate of President Woodrow Wilson, who screened the movie in the White House and said it was like writing history with lightning. All them lies, I say. And Woodrow Wilson, by the way, had a lot of black support, like prominent black folks like Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and Ida B. Wells Barnett and William Monroe Trotter. They supported Woodrow Wilson, but William Monroe Trotter saw the writing on the wall. He protested the birth of a nation in Boston, and also he confronted Woodrow Wilson in the White House to his face and basically called him a hypocrite and all that. And Woodrow Wilson said, "I don't like his tone." Kicked him out the White House, banned him from the White House, from my understanding. So, um, hmm. I mean, what's going on, man? Then also 10 years ago, you had the police killing of Darius Stewart. A young man was killed by the police on black church property in Memphis on Winchester. New Direction Church, Dr. Stacy Spencer, uh, his church owned that property. It was like their second church home, whatever. I think they was allowing Latinos or Hispanic community to use their church. But the Darius Stewart thing was weird. People talk about Tyree Nichols, but people forgot about Darius Stewart. That happened 10 years ago this summer. Darius Stewart was a passenger in the car that was pulled over by a cop. A guy named Schilling or something like that. But the weird thing about it, instead of him focusing on the driver, he focused on the person in the passenger seat. And they started getting into it. And I believe he let the driver go. And I believe the driver went to get Darius' mom to bring him back to the scene. And before you know it, Darius and the guy, the officer that pulled him over, are wrestling on the church property. There's footage of him roll on the ground with the officer. And somehow the officer shoots and kills him. And then I believe the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation did a report like they're trying to character assassinate Darius Stewart. Now, if Darius was working at FedEx at the time, and they accuse him of some improper behavior in his background as it relates to a minor. My thing about, I worked at FedEx before. They do a deep background check on anybody. They're not gonna hire just anybody at FedEx, whether it's executive offices or in the hub, we call it the plantation, where we move the boxes and stuff. I worked there for a summer, and in my college days years ago. They're trying to put all the blame on him for getting killed, but really it's the officer and his weird behavior. Some people claim that they knew each other and that it was an intimate thing going on, because some people suggest that Darius had a relationship with the officer. I don't know all the details, but I know I met Darius' mom, Mary Stewart, several times and broke her heart. And nobody talks about what happened to Darius 10 years ago, and it happened on a black church ground. The black church didn't do nothing about that. It's a far cry from the activism of Dr. King. Because what's crazy about it, Vernon Johns was the pastor before Dr. King at Dexter Baptist Avenue Church, or Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. He was the pastor before King. Vernon John. He was before him. He was like a mixture between King and Malcolm X. And then you had Dr. King succeed him. And that's interesting. You don't have, where's the activist preachers? I know, you got shout out to Dr. Earl Fisher at Greater Abyssinia Church. He do his thing in the community. I gotta give him that. He helps us. He's a partner with helping us do programming for our nonprofit. So we appreciate the work he does. But my saying is, there's not a lot of those type of activist ministers and preachers out there right now. Or, people talking about Bishop Jamal Bryant. I met Bishop Bryan in Baltimore 10 years ago this summer, or last spring. It'll be, this past spring will be 10 years ago. And I think of him as being electrifying, great orator. But then it's like, I don't know, man. Like, he looks the part, he plays the part, but is he the real deal? I don't see too many of them guys really, practicing what they preaching. And I'm not even making a personal judgment, but I think I know the black church is weak right now. I hope it gets strong. And what's interesting, I'm just I had the chance to talk to Professor James Cone, a theologian. Theologian. Yeah, James Cone. He passed away. When did he pass away? back in 2018, I talked to Pastor Cone on the phone. I recorded it. I believe I got to upload it. I don't have to upload it probably the WeIB TV too. But I talked to him about, this is the aftermath of Reverend Wright's GD America speech and Obama, addressing it in Philadelphia in his historic speech. And, and Matthew, the AME was founded by Richard Allen and Absalom Jones and others in Philadelphia, I believe. Philadelphia got an amazing Black history that they cover up or they don't talk about, they don't celebrate. And I'm gonna do a show about, some Philadelphia Black history that they don't really want you to know about or it should be better known. And I'll do that real soon. So y'all support what we're doing. We could do these shows. But I talked to Professor Dr. James Cone about, the Black church and has it lost its way. And basically, to paraphrase Dr. Cone, he was saying we got to go back to the reason why it was founded in the first place. Why was the Black church founded in the first place? Go back to the origins of the Black church. And it really basically come down to that, the reason why the Black church was founded was because Black folks were not allowed to worship with white people in the same building, congregation, denomination, whatever. So, they used to say back in Kingstown, the most segregated time in America was Sunday morning. The most segregated time in America was Sunday morning. The most segregated time in America was Sunday morning. That's what they say in King Civil Rights time. My thing is, when have we ever been really integrated in America? The closer we're being integrated in America, it comes to bedroom politics. And that's another story. We could talk about that too, race and sex. But the thing about it is that even like only just put on Black churches, but I remember, when Houston had that bad hurricane that summer back in 2017, and Joel Osteen, the prosperity preacher, he like, I like to read from the book of Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent, the book of 50 Cent. Like he really wasn't like I don't see him as no scholar, academic, theologian, or anything. He more like a motivational speaker. And he know how to work the camera, knew how to work, how to do his thing. And it really was disappointing to find out that he was turning people away that needed shelter and some place dry to stay. And you a multimillionaire and all this, you live in a big home and you got a jet, whatever, and your building used to be the home of the Houston Rockets. Like they used to be the basketball home of the Houston Rockets, and you mean you don't have no space for people looking for shelter and a place to just wrap their mind around what happened to them with this hurricane and flooding and stuff. So he was really shamed into letting people in. Cause his claim was I guess they just renovated the place, so they didn't want the filthy average people in there. I'm saying that he didn't say it like that, but anyway, yeah. But the church, we just lost Pastor Ricky Floyd on the questionable circumstances. He did Thaddeus's eulogy. I thought he did a great job. We got the eulogy on WeIB TV too. And just a couple days later on Wednesday, he's taken out of here, which is crazy. And he was doing stuff in the neighborhood in North Memphis, the Fraser area. He was trying to do some things. And I commend him on that. Like canned goods. I think, they had a couple of businesses that they supported. But my thing is this. He also had Pastor Whalum, the brother of Kirk Whalum, his church, they do Bust a Move Mondays. I think like a particular Monday once a month, and they support a Black business or two. But my thing is this, we are not doing enough. The church is not doing enough. And really it should extend beyond so-called membership, the work the church does. It should be about building community. It should be about, being moral leaders when it comes to stand on what is right and just, that type of stuff. So it's not really I'm beating down churches, but I told you a couple experiences. Like I said, if we God's people, we should have room for all people. We should have room for all of God's people to come together to break bread. We should be able to agree to disagree without being so disrespectful towards each other. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. I'm gonna wrap it up. We got to do better, people. What are there any institutions that Black American natives actually control in America, in this republic for which it stands? Any institution? So my ex, Miller is executive at Agape in Memphis. Okay, all right. Thank you for a shout out for that. Just looking through, man. Y'all, thank y'all for hanging on Sunken One. Thank you for hanging out, man. Yeah, yeah. But you know what's interesting though? Like you think about Creflo Dollar. You remember that was Creflo Dollar to try to demand that his congregation pay for him to get a jet, and then it's also Creflo Dollar that said that the tavern that we know is not, it's not supported by the biblical teachings. So it's like it's interesting. Like there's another thing. These people are like gatekeepers because you look at a lot of these ministers. They're part of they part of Divine Nine and Jack and Jill and they Masons and stuff like that. I'm not a Boule person. I'm not a Divine Nine person. I'm not a Masonic. I'm not a Mason. Now I got people in my family that were, Prince Hall Masons that have pledged Divine Nine, that do the bougie stuff, but I'm not a part of that. So that's the thing. It's hard to make it in Memphis if you're not a Reverend Doctor, or you're not Boule, you're not Divine Nine. You think about, our mayor right now. He's a Kappa. That's Divine Nine. The superintendent of the school, Memphis City and Shelby County schools. He's a Kappa. There's a couple of Kappas running stuff. It's Shelby County Commissioner is a Kappa, I believe. They different. They different Divine Nine. But I'm saying, are they looking out for all people? Or are they looking out for just their people? Even the mayor, he is the son of ministers. And yet he told a person I know well, not well, but I know as a colleague, and I know his track record when it comes to serving the community. He told this person, look, I can't do nothing for Black people. Now, this guy is the mayor of the blackest city in America. If he said, I'm going to do stuff for Memphis, they're still doing stuff for Black people. But yet he said, I can't do nothing for Black people. I got to do for everybody else. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. And this is the son of a preacher man. Allegedly, he said that. And I talked to him myself, and y'all know about that. But my thing is this: faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. If you're not teaching, if you don't have a program, like I say, you a church, you trying to attract young people, teach them how to code. You should have a program where you teaching kids how to code, help them create their own wealth, help them to be their own boss. You're not supporting stuff like that, then don't tell me you're a church, because a church is about the people. It's not about the buildings. It's about the people. So with that said, thank you all for tuning out to tune in again where you don't fit in. Because Dr. King said human salvation lies in the hands of the creatively maladjusted. And so you can support Brother Herd, Cash App, $ R2C2H2. Cash App your support. PayPal and Zelle, R2C2H2 at gmail.com. Vimo at R2C2H2. Apple Cash, 901-299-4355. Or join our Patreon, patreon.com/We All Be. And we show all the different ways y'all can support We All Be, y'all. Gonna show all the different ways. Let's see y'all go. Before we get out of here. So much going on. I'm glad I was able to come on here. I know I pissed some people off. They're gonna be like, hate watching this, what I'm doing. It is what it is. Ain't no thing, man. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. I'm trying to find something. But thank y'all. I have some more shows coming up. Thank y'all. Uh, thank y'all for the support, man. It means a lot because there's a lot going on that I can't really talk about at this time. But I look forward to talking about it very soon. A lot going on, man. Just keep me in your thoughts and prayers. If you love what I'm doing and you are positive, send your positive vibes and prayers this way. They are needed and they are more than appreciated. And that does it for this edition of We All Be, a news-free Dixie for the 21st century. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Brother Ron, also known as R2C2H2, the artivist. Words the great Duke Ellington, we love you madly. In the words of Brother Ron, what you heard the word? Subscribe. YouTube, We All Be TV 2. Rumble, We All Be TV. Keep on producing and pushing. One love. Good night, everybody. It's not goodbye, but it is good night.